стали, подпевали и плясали, эй! Пока пустая рука. Когда пополнится карман, бармен надует бока. Бокал вина, семена для пива и чуть-чуть текилы. После водка, селедка, вот дурацкие поводки. Только мелочь не в ходу, только крупные купюры. Бабы, бабы не дуры, бабы берегут фигуры. Бабы, бабы не дуры, бабы берегут фигуры. Бабы, бабы не дуры, бабы берегут фигуры. Музыку давай, зажигай, музыкант. Да такую, чтоб все знали, подпевали и плясали, эй!
And on that note, I think we can begin. Good evening, afternoon, or whatever time of the day it is in your part of the planet. And as mentioned, I have been considering as to what we are going to do during tonight's variety stream, because I have been getting a little bit behind on the schedule. First, of course, on account of holidays, then, of course, on the count of being sick. You can probably still hear it in my voice. Seems okay? Well, if you say so, I can still hear it being a little bit off, but that's just me, of course. So, I decided we're going to do a little bit of both. We're going to go through at least 2 chapters of the book, and then we'll go over to Torchlight. I feel like we're hitting the penultimate area in the game. It's going to be caverns, and then I wonder what their equivalent of hell is going to be. I mean, I know what it's going to be because I've played the game a long time ago. But hey, at least I'm gonna try and carry on some sort of novelty. At least for a couple of people in the audience, where they not familiar with it. Now then, let me just put on the appropriate image right there, because this is gonna be our future, or at least Blizzard's future, from here on out, for quite a lot of this book. And just to make it a little bit more on the nose, you get smaller. I'm over here, right. Now this looks fine. Almost like they're looking at Bobby Kotick. Almost. Who am I to judge after all? This is half decent. Anyway, enough patting myself on the back. Let's pick out the soundtrack. I think for this one we're gonna go with Diablo 3. Yep, Diablo 3 soundtrack. There we go. Just give it a little bit. There it is. And we can... No, we're not going to continue where we left off with it. We're going to wind it back to the beginning. There. And we're going to tone it down, of course, so that it's not too loud. There. Let me know if you can hear it. Something tells me you do not. Because my laptop can be interesting. There we go. Sometimes the settings just not updating properly when I plug and unplug things. Anyway. Part 3. Future. Chapter 22, Incubation. In the summer of 2016, Alan Adham walked onto the sunny Irvine campus of a company that was much different from the one he'd founded. Decades earlier, Blizzard had been a handful of guys in a cramped office. Now, it was part of Activision Blizzard, which Fortune named one of the 500 most lucrative companies and one of the 100 most desirable workplaces. If you polled a random group of enthusiasts and asked their favorite video game company, the most common answer would be Nintendo, but Blizzard would be second or third. It had been 12 years since Adham resigned. During his lengthy hiatus, he had played a lot of World of Warcraft, and he had started a hedge fund, an unusual move for a video game designer, but Adham had long been interested in the inner workings of the stock market, which he saw as its own sort of video game. I mean, he's not wrong there. By 2015, he was managing $50 million from nearly 100 people, but the fund was struggling, and Adham decided it was time for another pivot. He and Morhaime began talking. Blizzard was failing to get new games off the ground, and Adham had always considered himself particularly good at starting projects. What if he came back to help Blizzard cultivate new ideas? While Adham often told colleagues he wasn't motivated by money, everyone knew that by leaving Blizzard before the release of World of Warcraft and the Activision merger, he'd missed out on a huge payday. He had made millions by selling Blizzard to Davidson, but it wasn't the kind of FU money that some of his former colleagues later saw. Leaving Blizzard, Adham would later say had been the biggest mistake of his life. Because he missed making games, for sure, but also because of the cash. So, Adham wound down his hedge firm and returned to the video game company he had started. Morhaime sent out an email to reintroduce him as head of Blizzard's new incubation department, encouraging employees to send him ideas for new games. Adham would then help turn those ideas into pitch presentations for Blizzard's Product Strat Group, which consisted of the company's C-suite and top developers. Fresh off the unexpected success of Hearthstone and Overwatch, billion-dollar franchises that had come from small, focused teams, Blizzard wanted to see if it could capture yet another bolt of lightning in yet another bottle. Colleagues wanted Adham to move slowly, advice he ignored. He was accustomed to a Blizzard that had operated quickly and chaotically, perhaps most importantly, where he was in charge. As he emphatically offered his opinions in the company's direction, Blizzard's executive producers began to squirm. Those who had never worked with Adham before started to wonder, who was this guy telling them what to do and trying to poach their people? Blizzard's newer power players, like World of Warcraft's executive producer J. Allen Brack, weren't familiar with Adham's style and didn't react well to the idea of losing their top developers. When Adham tried to move people from Team 2 to his own projects, he was told he'd have to wait a few months or even a year before they would be ready. On the months that followed, Adham helped kick off 2 games. One, codenamed Orbis, was a Warcraft-themed twist on the massively popular Pokemon Go, which allowed players to catch fantasy critters in augmented reality using a phone's camera. The Orbis pitch had been circulating before Adham joined, but he took over and helped shape it. The other was Odyssey, a Blizzard spin on survival games such as Rust. But many of the other ideas Adham shepherded never made it out of Product Strat, frustrating some developers who were told that they needed to prove that there was a potential billion-dollar market for their projects. Logic that seemed backward if they wanted to do something innovative. Some Blizzard employees wondered if Rob Pardo's departure had zapped the company's creativity, despite his struggles as a manager. So many of the things that were making Blizzard special and dynamic and interesting disappeared with him, said Jonathan Bankard, a business director. The return of Blizzard's founders seemed to be a broadly positive development for the company as it grappled with identity questions and increasing pressure from Activision. But Adham's colleagues began to suspect that he was in the wrong role. This sort of middle management position was an awkward fit. Instead, he should be either higher, in the C-suite, or lower, the director of a game. Seeing how many Blizzard employees didn't even recognize his name proved to be an uncomfortable new reality for Adham. In many ways, Blizzard had moved on without him. At the time, the Diablo franchise was floundering. A few years earlier, Morhaime had nixed a second expansion for Diablo 3 in favor of quickly moving on to the next game under Josh Mosqueira. But then Mosqueira quit Blizzard and his project, Hades, was cancelled. Team 3 was left leaderless. Morhaime called up a couple of old friends to see if they might be interested in taking the reins. Bill Roper and Dave Brevik, who had resigned from Blizzard North all those years ago. They talked for several months about the possibility, but Brevik sniffed out some of the same politics that were hounding at him, and the conversations fizzled. "That's not why I make video games," Brevik said. Oh yes, that must have hurt. Adham, who had been involved with the series since it was just a pitch on Brevik's computer, sat next to the Diablo team and thought he might be able to help, perhaps as the franchise's executive producer. The other executives agreed, but in this new era of Blizzard, everything moved slowly. During one product strat meeting, Adham grew frustrated and barked at Frank Pierce, asking why it was taking so long for him to take over the Diablo team. Pierce, who had been Adham's first employee but was now chief development officer and his boss, shot back in his gruff tone. Adham wasn't in charge of the company anymore. He needed to chill out. Adham apologized, relented, and waited until a few months later he was named executive producer of the Diablo team, where he helmed several new projects. Later he would regret moving so quickly rather than trying to build trust with the other Blizzard leaders. By necessity and design, Blizzard's culture had morphed as the company expanded, transforming each team into its own fiefdom, with its own relationships and power struggles. Management by chaos was no longer an option. The hope was that Adham's incubation initiative would lead to more Blizzard games for mobile, which was now the biggest gaming platform in the world. Tens of millions of people might play games on PCs, where Blizzard had always reigned, and consoles, where Blizzard had more recently engaged, but hundreds of millions were playing on their smartphones. People who would never think of themselves as gamers spent hours on their phones on the subway, flinking birds at pigs, or mindlessly sliding tiles as they waited for the dentist. Blizzard's own Hearthstone, which had come out on phones shortly after it was released on PC, had reached huge audiences that would have previously considered picking up one of the company's games. Yeah, less WoW and more CK2. Indeed. Although Bobby Kotick had originally dismissed mobile gaming as a fad, the eye-popping numbers on Apple and Android phones changed his mind. Mobile games could feature aggressive monetization models that wouldn't be tolerated by gamers who played on PCs or consoles. The colorful, addictive puzzle game Candy Crush, for example, was free to play but accosted players with in-app purchases, a model that brought in more than $1 billion in revenue per year for King, the Swedish company behind the game. In 2015, Activision spent nearly $6 billion to purchase King and began pushing for more other mobile investments across the company. For Blizzard, there was another compelling reason to invest in the world of mobile games. They were typically smaller and less ambitious than their PC and console counterparts, and they were often developed in less than a year. Perhaps these smaller projects, free from the tortured production cycles of major sequels like StarCraft II and Diablo III, could help fill the gaps looming in Blizzard's release schedule. But, as Adham had learned, Blizzard had an efficiency problem. Developers who had been at the company for decades were set in their ways, even if that meant working more slowly than their competitors. Weekly stand-up meetings that were 10 minutes at other companies might take an hour at Blizzard. Sprints, or periods of time dedicated to completing a set amount of work, typically unfolded over a few weeks. At Blizzard, they could take 3 months. Even the most rudimentary company functions took extra time. Prospective employees would face months of silence after job interviews and then give up, assuming they hadn't been hired, only to receive offers in the email a year later. "I've joked that Blizzard is aptly named," said Glenn Rain, a longtime artist. "It's glacial." Blizzard had tried to smooth out its game production process over the years, but few attempts had stuck. Veteran developers were resistant to change and didn't want to veer away from what had worked in the past. The bigger the company grew, the more slowly it moved, and the Blizzard brand was too revered, pressuring everyone at the company to embrace perfectionism. "I think the Blizzard process keeps them from advancing too quickly," said one developer. "They have layers and layers of cultural due diligence, so every single decision winds up recalculated multiple times." One driver of Blizzard's success had always been ensuring that the games were as polished and bug-free as possible, which also slowed everything down. Dan Johnson, a QA analyst, found what appeared to be an insignificant graphical glitch in StarCraft II during his first few weeks at the company. Previous companies, he might have been instructed to skip it for more important bug reports, but Blizzard was different. They said, "No, write that up," Johnson said. There was not a bug that was too small. The bulk of Blizzard's staff were now working on games that were already live, churning out new content for World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, and Heroes of the Storm every month, which also made new projects take longer. Yeah, not cutting the bug fixing. That's always a plus. And I do mean it. The other big factor was crunch, which was still present, but had been reduced significantly since Adham's first stint at Blizzard, when developers had sacrificed their personal lives and slept on couches in the office for weeks at a time. Better work-life balance kept employees happier and healthier, but in the long run, but it meant that games took longer to make. Most people who worked at Blizzard, especially those who had been there for decades, felt like there was something special about the place, and it was impossible to know which Jenga pieces they could remove without destroying the whole tower. Developers on most of the company's recent projects, StarCraft II, Diablo III, and even Titan, had struggled with this same dilemma. Blizzard's executives and developers were terrified to alter the company's processes because they didn't want to inadvertently kill that magic that made Blizzard such a success in the first place. Bobby Kotick also said he didn't want to kill the magic, but his actions made Blizzard loyalists believe otherwise. While Adham tried to navigate the new internal politics of Blizzard, Morhaime was facing increasing external pressure from his corporate overlords. Kotick and Thomas Tipple asked why Blizzard had so many people in non-development departments, particularly cinematics and customer service, and why the company wasn't improving its efficiency. During long-range planning meetings, Activision executives would point out that they had more than 1,000 people on Call of Duty, while World of Warcraft only had a few hundred. Tipple offered man-month calculations to prove to Morhaime and his team that the only way to release new expansions more quickly, a goal that both companies shared, would be to add hundreds more people to Team 2. Activision's messaging was always the same. Blizzard was letting its players down by not putting out more World of Warcraft content on a regular cadence. To Morhaime and in his circle, these demands seemed to be contradictory and unreasonable. Kotick celebrated when Blizzard incubated smash hits like Hearthstone and now Overwatch, but at the same time he expected Blizzard's best people to work on its most lucrative games rather than experiment with those new franchises. And there was skepticism among the veterans, who felt like they understood players better than Kotick did, as to whether people wanted more content if it wasn't going to feel fun and innovative. One of the most significant fights between Blizzard and Activision was over how to reward staff. Kotick believed in giving the biggest bonuses to teams that delivered the largest profits, which would encourage more people to move to World of Warcraft, while Morhaime thought that the entire company should benefit from profit sharing. Otherwise, there'd be no incentive for people to go experiment with new ideas. They struck a few compromises over time, as Morhaime agreed to shift a greater portion of profit sharing to the World of Warcraft team, without eliminating bonuses for other divisions. But the argument was always simmering. Activision Blizzard's board of directors wanted to convert the top staff's equity into performance shares that would only vest on certain conditions, like if yearly operating income, that is profit, hit a predetermined goal. Morhaime was livid about this change, arguing that the system incentivized short-term thinking and would punish his teams if, say, they delayed a game. Kotick and Tipple fired back that the whole point of a bonus was to reward teams for shipping on time. It shouldn't be guaranteed even if teams failed to deliver. Morhaime said that when things went awry, that was when they wanted their top executives and directors working the hardest, not hunting for new jobs because their equity vanished. And on the two companies battled. Blizzard's leaders couldn't understand why Activision felt compelled to interfere with their operations. They had 5 franchises: Warcraft, Diablo, StarCraft, Hearthstone, and now Overwatch, that other big video game publishers would kill to get their hands on. The company had generated a whopping $2.4 billion of revenue in 2016 thanks to World of Warcraft and the runaway success of Overwatch. But Activision was looking for consistent growth, which Blizzard, with its spotty release schedule, was not delivering. Blizzard's profit output was like a pendulum, swinging back and forth between good and bad years. Here's an example. 2010, 850 million. 2011, 496 million. 2012, 716 million. 2013, 376 2014, 756. 2015, 561. 2016, 1 billion. Now it was set to plummet again in 2017. At this point, Blizzard had no other significant games on the horizon. Massive hits like Overwatch were great, and the fact that Blizzard was able to generate 9 or 10 figures of profit every year was itself something of a marvel in what had become a volatile, hit-driven industry. But shareholders weren't holding on to Activision Blizzard stock because of its current success. They were holding on to the expectation of success to come. Kotick and his team didn't demand linear increases from year to year, but they did want Blizzard to show steady growth over longer horizons. And during long-range messaging planning meetings, people would ask how the company planned to reorganize so it could achieve that goal. If they couldn't release a new World of Warcraft expansion every fall, maybe they could alternate with new Diablo or Overwatch releases. Most Blizzard employees weren't aware of the battles their CEO was fighting with Kotick and his lieutenants. But many, especially those outside of the development teams, did start to notice Activision influencing Blizzard in ways they'd never witnessed before. "Everybody was seeing it," said one staffer. "Oh, this Blizzard person left. They were replaced by an Activision employee." Morhaime had hoped that Armin Zerza could help explain Blizzard's values to Activision, but instead he appeared to be bringing Activision's values to Blizzard. In the past, even the finance people had channeled Blizzard's player-first ethos. Back in 2011, when discussing how much of a cut Blizzard would take from transactions on the Diablo 3 auction house, Blizzard's accountants told the team to lower the numbers, saying they were creating the system only for the benefit of players. "It was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen in the video game industry," said designer Jason Bender. Even with Morhaime pushed his game teams to add more recurring revenue models to their games, like character boosts in World of Warcraft or the map marketplace in StarCraft 2, they were supplemental. When a model didn't work out, like the auction house, the company would kill it. "I think Blizzard's forte was really leaving a bunch of money on the table," said Jonathan Bankard. "And investing in," the term we used was, "the player sentiment bank account." Now the landscape was different. Traditionally, at Blizzard, the executive producer of each game had the autonomy to run their franchise however they saw fit. But in this new era, Zerza and his finance department would sit in meetings and offer input, making suggestions that sounded a whole lot like demands. World of Warcraft executive producer J. Allen Brack, who had firmly opposed Zerza's hiring, complained to colleagues that their CFO's goals were at odds with the company's values. "Armin wanted to make as much money as we can," said Frederic Dumas, the publishing director of World of Warcraft in Europe. "Jay wanted to be as right as possible to our players. You need to find the right balance between both." By the end of 2017, Zerza had been promoted to Chief Operating Officer at Blizzard and was overseeing many more departments, leading some longtime staff to begin accepting a dismal reality. Going to work every day was getting less fun. With an MBA from Wharton and years of experience leading Blizzard's Strategic Initiatives Group, Hamilton Chu knew how to speak Zerza's language. After steering Hearthstone to become one of the company's biggest hits, he had earned enough clout to be able to shield Team 5 from some of the financial pressures that were hitting the rest of the company. But every time Hearthstone surpassed revenue expectations, the next year's targets only grew larger, which forced him to spend more time in business meetings. "It made my life unpleasant," Chu said. "I was just spending 80% of my emotional energy on that rather than working on the game." By 2017, Hearthstone had drawn significantly more attention from Zerza and his finance team, who were looking to push harder on live games to make up for the lack of big new products. There were a series of meetings, pressures, and discussions about monetization, said Steve Fowler, the vice president of global publishing. "Why are we not running bundles? Why are we not running more frequent sales? Can we get a 4th expansion pack every year into the game?" People who didn't play a lot of games didn't seem to understand why some of these suggestions might be detrimental. There's a breaking point, or at least a bending point, where if you continue to extract as much revenue out of players in the short term, that has an effect on the long-term retention, said Fowler. Zerza's own incentives were tied to short-term financial results, and he proved to be savvy at finding ways to boost the numbers for a given fiscal quarter, striking big deals across Blizzard and pushing for discounts and promotions inside games like Hearthstone. Chu and his team argued that these sales would dilute the value of card packs. Once you train people to look for price discounts, bundles, they're trapped on that, said Bankard. It's like Kmart versus Costco. You feel good at Costco because it feels like they price everything fairly. They don't need to put specials on. In December 2017, the Hearthstone team released a free single-player mode called Dungeon Run that tasked players with beating a series of increasingly difficult computer-controlled bosses. The mode was popular but didn't bring in any money or encourage players to buy card packs, which led to endless battles for Team 5. Not just with Activision-minded executives, but even with Blizzard leaders like Morhaime, who now had to grapple with tough questions. The company's philosophy had always been that if you made great games, the money would follow. But was that still true in the world of free-to-play? At the same time, Chu was getting calls from an ex-Blizzard employee named Jay Ong, now head of gaming at the comic book giant Marvel, who said that if Chu left Blizzard and started a new company, he could work on a Marvel video game. Chu went to Ben Brode, who was now the director of Hearthstone and who had also grown frustrated with the changes of Blizzard, to gauge his interest in a partnership. Yes, red line goes up, indefinitely. Brode was an easy sell, both because he would follow Chu anywhere, and because he had missed spending his days developing games rather than sitting in meetings. I'd lost touch with the product, Brode said. The idea that I could get back into making games was really exciting to me. As the two of them began talking about what leaving Marvel might look like, they decided to coin a code phrase for their next mission. That way, if someone popped into a room and asked what they were talking about, they had an easy explanation. The code word, said Brode, was Dungeon Run monetization. In the spring of 2018, Chu and Brode quit Blizzard. The company had been seen significant departures in the past. Chris Metzen had resigned shortly after the release of Overwatch, citing burnout. But this one felt different. More existential. Rumors were starting to swirl about Kotick's plans and whether Morhaime would even stick around for much longer. It felt like I was leaving an uncertain thing for an uncertain thing, Brode said. Side note, Chu and Brode would go on to start a video game studio called Second Dinner, where they used that Marvel license to create another hit card game, Marvel Snap. You've probably seen ads for it about a year ago. Suddenly, Brode found himself having to worry about lingo like CPI, cost per install, and LTV, lifetime value, attached to each player. At Blizzard, we just never thought about those things, he said. You know what they say. Better the devil you know, etc., etc. Anyway. Brode's departure was especially painful because he had become one of the public faces of Blizzard, regularly appearing on promotional Hearthstone streams and recording silly videos for the game. One YouTube compilation featuring nothing but clips of him laughing racked up 500,000 views. When he left Blizzard, that's when I knew something was not right, said Brian Schwab, an engineer on the original Hearthstone team. He would have stayed on Hearthstone until the sun death of the universe. That's how much he bled Blizzard. It was now clear to everyone at Blizzard that the company was changing in big ways. New hires were warned. It's not like it was before. Sure, they still got to make video games for a living, and they still worked on franchises that were beloved by billions, but Blizzard was starting to feel like other corporations that prioritized profits over players. At the same time, Blizzard was about to launch one of its most ambitious initiatives yet, an effort that would take one of its biggest games to a new level. This world had never seen anything like it, for better or for worse. Chapter 23. The NFL of Video Games. The first documented video game tournament took place in 1972, when a group of Stanford University students battled in the primitive spaceship fighting simulator, Space War. First place won a year-long subscription to Rolling Stone magazine. 30 years later, Koreans were packing stadiums to watch their favorite players duke it out in high-stakes matches over virtual soldiers. Some milk with honey after this. Got the honey, but not the milk, so I'll have to settle for tea. By the 2000s, competitive gaming had an official name, esports, and the best digital athletes were able to make a living doing nothing but playing games like Quake or League of Legends. Side note, Some may write esports with a capital S, but we will be having none of that here. Blizzard's games were at the center of this esports revolution, largely thanks to StarCraft's ubiquity in South Korea. In the early 2000s, Korea's World Cyber Games became one of the biggest esports tournaments on the planet, with a prize pool in the millions of dollars and prime slots for both StarCraft and Warcraft 3. By the 2010s, grassroots esports communities had sprouted around all of Blizzard's games. Even World of Warcraft, not normally associated with competitive gaming, joined the party with a dedicated mode in which players could swing swords and sling spells at one another. I think they call it arenas. Yeah, it's basically PvP. You know what capital S it is. To video game companies, it wasn't clear what to make of this burgeoning industry or how to monetize it. Morhaime was a big fan of esports, and he was thrilled to host Warcraft and StarCraft tournaments at BlizzCon every year, but the company kept its own esports initiatives low-key. In 2012, after resolving the Caspa dispute, Blizzard launched an event called the StarCraft II World Championship Series that would collate various international tournaments into one big organization with a final match at BlizzCon. Still, the goal was to make a cultural impact and serve fans, not to create a viable business. At no point in time was I ever asked how much money would make on what the profitability was, said Ilya Rotelli, an executive who helped launch the series. You know what, I should probably play SC2VN on stream at some point. I know TB played it. Total Biscuit, that is. God bless his soul, wherever he is. Might make for a nice nostalgic trip. Morhaime's wife, Amy, became head of the esports department as it slowly expanded to facilitate events around the world. The pair were compelled to invest more in esports for three big reasons. 1. To protect players from the sketchier elements of the grassroots scene, where careers were volatile and contracts were often violated. 2. Because they believed it was a big opportunity to engage with players and bring in new ones. And 3. So Blizzard was positioned as a leader in esports if it ever did become a viable business. Esports might not be lucrative yet, they thought, but they wanted it to be at the front of the pack, what it was. Trevor Houston, a professional StarCraft player who had gained prominence as one of the few non-Koreans to compete in the big leagues, was one of the first members of this esports department. He helped organize events for World of Warcraft and Hearthstone and soon began working on the ideas for the company's next big game, Overwatch. Whether or not we were going to have a competitive scene was not a question, said Houston. It was, how are we going to approach it? With its 6-person teams and potential for big, match-changing plays, Overwatch seemed ripe for a flourishing esports scene. As the game entered its final stretch of development, Houston and a few colleagues began exploring a new idea: a professional league that was owned and operated by Blizzard itself. Nate Nanzer, the director of Blizzard's Consumer Insights department, was intrigued by this initiative. He'd spent the last few years studying the metrics behind esports, how much Blizzard players cared about competition, what they liked to watch, and what the value might be. When I played the game, I saw all these interesting parallels to traditional sports, he said. By the end of 2015, he had teamed up with Houston and a small group of other staff to pitch an Overwatch esports league based on the National Basketball Association of the Premier League. This new league would be divided into teams, each tied to a major city, like New York or San Francisco, with players receiving annual salaries and health benefits. They began talking to the NBA, which was also interested in esports, about a potential partnership. The next step was taking it to Activision. Bobby Kotick was an esports skeptic, and for years he and his lieutenants had asked Morhaime and other Blizzard executives why were they even bothering with competitive gaming. But by the fall of 2014, he was reversing course. Riot Games, his neighbor in Santa Monica, put together a League of Legends tournament that reached 27 million viewers during the championship round, nearly twice as many people as the NBA Finals. That same year, Valve's annual Dota 2 International Tournament gave out a prize pool of close to 11 million and brought in 20 million viewers of its own. Companies with names like Evil Geniuses and Team Liquid were getting hefty valuations to field squads of competitive gamers. But people still hadn't figured out how to monetize all those eyeballs, a challenge that Kotick thought he could take on. Kotick had always harbored a not-so-secret desire to expand his empire beyond video games. And in 2015, he started making big moves. He launched an Activision Blizzard film and television studio, promising a Call of Duty cinematic universe, and hiring Stacy Sher, the producer of films like Pulp Fiction and Erin Brockovich, to help run it. Side note, this was independent from the long-troubled Warcraft movie, loosely based on the first game, which was eviscerated upon its release in 2016. Rarely is so much time, money, and cutting-edge technology expended on a spectacle so devoid of wonder, wrote critic A.A. Dowd of the AV Club. We gotta watch it at some point, if only to make fun of it. Anyway, later, during a presentation to investors, he outlined plans for Activision to become more like Disney, with a string of complementary business models, including in-game advertising that he declared would lead them to an ambitious 15% compound annual growth rate in the near future. Esports too would be one of the pillars of Kotick's lofty strategy. He brought in former ESPN CEO Steve Bornstein to launch a new esports division for the whole company, and announced that Activision planned to buy the organization Major League Gaming for $46 million to create the ESPN of esports. The Morheims weren't thrilled that Kotick had suddenly pivoted from questioning their small investments into esports to making his own huge ones. They had pushed back against the Major League Gaming purchase, arguing that the organization's streaming platform wasn't very good, and that it certainly wasn't worth $46 million. Blizzard had explored an investment in Twitch, the more dominant streaming website, but was rebuffed. Now, Twitch had been purchased by Amazon for nearly $1 billion, and Activision was buying a seemingly inferior product. Hey, if any Twitch staff is hearing this, there you go, your free advertisement. I'd like to get a small 0.1% cut now, thank you kindly. Back to it. Still, Kotick's esports turnaround could prove beneficial for Blizzard's own initiatives. In the summer of 2016, Nanzer and his team met with Activision's executives to formally pitch what they were calling the Overwatch League. Kotick loved the idea so much that he told Blizzard staff he didn't want to work with the NBA or any other external partner. He wanted them to do it themselves, using Activision's marketing muscle to create the NFL of video games. Then Kotick dropped another bombshell. Nanzer had originally planned to sell teams for $250,000 each, which seemed like an unrealistic goal to his colleagues given the lack of substantial money in esports. But he thought a city-based model could generate enough revenue to justify it. Kotick said they should aim bigger. $20 million per franchise. Everyone was shocked. They were going to charge potential owners $20 million to buy an Overwatch League team? Most of the world didn't know what Overwatch even was. But Kotick wanted to recruit billionaires who already owned traditional esports teams and could bring their expertise to this project, and he knew that they wouldn't care about potentially turning $250,000 into $1 million or $2 million. It's a pastime for mere millionaires. Kotick's peers would only be interested in if they believed they could turn $20 million into, say, $100 million. The downside was that each Overwatch team began $20 million in the hole. An inauspicious start for a business with no proven model for generating revenue. That November at the BlizzCon opening ceremony, Morhaime declared that they were looking for the top players in the world, and the team owners who will form the Overwatch League. Upstairs in a private theater, Nanzer gave a pitch to a room full of sports owners and wealthy executives, including New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft and Los Angeles Rams owner Stan Kroenke. Later, Kraft and his son would help Kotick convince a number of other heavy hitters to buy into the league. It was pretty surreal, said Nanzer, who became the commissioner. Over the next year, Activision Blizzard built a new esports division for the Overwatch League, poaching executives from the NFL and NBA rather than leaning on Blizzard's existing esports group. A move that angered Blizzard veterans as their colleagues at Activision began handling marketing and operations. In 2017, Activision also absorbed Blizzard's consumer products division, the group responsible for selling gear and striking deals with outside companies like LEGO to license and develop merchandise. Matt Beecher, Blizzard's vice president of consumer products, called it the tip of the spear. the first division that was directly transferred from Blizzard to its parent company, hinting at grander consolidation to come. But Kotick didn't want to dismantle consumer products. If anything, the opposite turned out to be true, as he told the division to aim to surpass traditional sports. Expectations for revenue grew bigger as the companies prepared to develop hats, sweatshirts, and mugs based on the Overwatch League. "We were hiring people left and right," Beecher said. "It's just wild." No, 2% comes later, when I upgrade from 3 viewers per stream to 5. In Irvine, the excitement was palpable. Overwatch was going to become an international sport. The league sold 12 franchises, each attached to a city either in the United States or Asia. Buyers included both traditional sports owners and large esports organizations, all tantalized by the idea of getting in on the ground floor of the next NFL. For the first 2 years, Overwatch League matches would unfold in an area in Burbank, California, until they reached the finals, which would take place in Brooklyn, New York. Along the way, the league would build up an audience and cultivate fan loyalty for teams like the New York Excelsior and San Francisco Shock. The league's initial revenue would come from sponsorships and a hefty deal they signed with Twitch for the streaming rights. Then, for the league's third year, they'd move to a home and away model where teams would play in their respective cities, selling tickets and hot dogs to thousands of fans. At the same time, they'd come out with an Overwatch sequel, which would lead to a surge of new interest. The Overwatch League kicked off its inaugural season in January 2018, reaching an impressive 10 million viewers in the league's first week, and by summer they'd even announced a broadcasting deal with ESPN. But there were problems beginning to emerge. Team owners grumbled about certain rules, like how the league would restrict their ability to sell sponsorships so that they could all be packaged together. In the NFL, the organization and its commissioner existed to help teams make money, while in the Overwatch League, the organization and its commissioner existed to help Activision Blizzard make money. Then there was the X Factor. Years earlier, the Korean esports organization KESPA had scoffed that it was FIFA and Blizzard, and it was FIFA, and Blizzard was just the soccer ball. But unlike a soccer ball, video games were constantly changing. And unlike FIFA, the Overwatch League was reliant on a group of game developers who had their own goals and priorities. For the people who had made Overwatch, the Overwatch League was a surreal experience. A few years earlier, Jeff Kaplan and his team had been reeling from the cancellation of Titan, the biggest failure in Blizzard's history, which Kaplan told one interviewer had impacted him in a deep, profound way. Now their creation was the center of a massive initiative that could change the way the world thought about esports. Many of the artists and programmers who had worked on Overwatch were happy to work on the Overwatch League. They created brands, designed team logos, and even built tools like an in-game replay viewer that would let Overwatch players watch matches from any angle. But soon it became clear that Team 4 had too much work to do. Kaplan's team needed to simultaneously 1. Help out with features and art for the Overwatch League, 2. Develop the sequel, and 3. Create new heroes and updates for Overwatch, which had almost accidentally turned into a live service game over the previous 2 years. Side note. A fourth task that also took up a significant amount of time for some staff was to look over ancillary products like Lego and TV shows, which the Overwatch leadership wanted to supervise and control themselves. Although Overwatch was sold in boxes like a traditional product, Team 4 knew they would also wanted to keep updating it after release. Kaplan had promised fans that they would never sell maps or heroes, so instead, they came up with an eclectic collection of cosmetic items such as outfits, voice lines, and victory poses for each character. There were so many types of items like stickers and sound effects that it seemed too messy to classify them on a storefront. So the developers decided to put them in randomized packages called loot boxes that were inspired by Hearthstone card packs. Players could buy loot boxes for real money in the Overwatch store, 2 for $2 or up to 50 for $40. Some pundits took issue with the principle of a game getting microtransactions when players had already paid for it, but Overwatch distributed so many loot boxes for free that they didn't seem like they'd be all that profitable. Members of Team 4 were subsequently shocked to learn that loot boxes were leading the game to generate more than $1 billion in revenue. But developing new heroes and seasonal events required certain significant resources. And when the Overwatch League popped up, the Overwatch team found itself stretched thin. Kotick and his circle proposed the same solution they'd been pushing on World of Warcraft for years: hire more people. They should create a second development team to work on the sequel, Kotick said, just like Call of Duty. Failing that, they should double or even triple the size of their team so they could handle these demands and live up to player expectations. Kaplan and Ray Gresko, who was now Overwatch's executive producer, believed that expending too much would ruin the culture, which was one of the main reasons they had been able to develop Overwatch so efficiently. Kaplan would personally onboard staff and liked to know every single person on his team. By 2018, they had crossed 150 people, but they refused to grow to the scale Kotick wanted, saying they didn't want to repeat the mistakes they'd made in previous projects like Titan. Plus, they argued it would destroy morale if half of the team got to incubate cool new stuff, while the other half had to stay behind and update the first game. More quietly, the developers scoffed that they didn't want Overwatch to transform into a soulless machine like Call of Duty. Later, some members of the Overwatch development team would come to resent the Overwatch League, viewing it as an unnecessary distraction that had been forced upon them. For year 2, the league would add 8 new expansion teams, which meant more logos, branding, and other miscellaneous work for the developers. Plus, more pressure as team owners asked Team 4 to create unique cosmetics that each team could sell. The tension between running a live service game and an esports league, those priorities are not going to be aligned, said Nanzer. Leaders on the Overwatch team weren't the only ones feeling pressure from their corporate overlords. In the spring of 2017, Activision Blizzard Chief Operating Officer Thomas Tipple stepped down, although he stuck around as vice chairman of the board, and tensions began to ramp up even further. Although Morhaime and other Blizzard executives often battled with Tipple, he had also served as a counterweight to Kotick and had been willing to say no to some of the CEO's wilder ideas. Tipple liked to say that Kotick was the unreasonable man. It was how Activision had achieved so much success over the years, and that it was his job to channel that vision into a feasible plan. Blizzard's bosses were initially excited to work with Tipple's successor, Cody Johnson, with 2 Ds, who had struck them as cordial and reasonable a few years earlier, when he had been Kotick's chief of staff. But in April 2018, Johnson put together an off-site conference for leaders across all 3 of Activision Blizzard's divisions: Activision Publishing, Blizzard, and King. One theme was unification, streamlining operations into one ABK, rather than maintaining 3 autonomous entities. Kotick and his team were spelling out what had been apparent to Morhaime for years. He didn't want Blizzard to be independent anymore. There were no conversations about which parts of Blizzard's culture should be preserved, only directives on how to integrate it into the rest of Activision Blizzard. For Morhaime and the rest of Blizzard leadership, this was alarming. They were already losing key staff such as Hearthstone leaders Hamilton Chu and Ben Brode, and they were worried that more attrition was on the way as other executive producers and directors expressed their frustration with the changes Activision was trying to bring to Blizzard. Gresko, fuming, filed his resignation before the conference was even over. He was later convinced to take a sabbatical instead. After the offsite, Morhaime wrote a lengthy email to Kotick, shared with several other executives, declaring that Blizzard had reached a tipping point. I believe that preserving Blizzard's culture and magic is a necessity for preserving Activision Blizzard's advantage of having an organization that can attract and retain the best creative talent in the world, and that can consistently produce the highest quality games and experiences, he wrote. With the new direction that ABK is having, as well as its increased involvement in the operations of Blizzard, it has been increasingly hard for me to provide Blizzard leadership and staff confidence that Blizzard has a stable future as a values-driven organization, where both Blizzard culture and brand identity can be protected. We need to get clarity and stability around the boundaries between Activision Blizzard and Blizzard, he added. By the summer of 2018, even ground-level Blizzard employees were accepting a reality that had long been shielded from them. Activision was all over the company. For the first time in Blizzard's history, there was widespread messaging from the top down to the budget-conscious and cut as many costs as possible. Public relations people had to coordinate with their counterparts in Santa Monica before sending out statements or conducting interviews. Side note. In November 2018, as I was preparing to first break the news that Activision Blizzard was taking a larger role in Blizzard's operations, I reached out to Blizzard's PR people for comment, got one answer, and was then contacted by Activision Blizzard's PR people with a conflicting response. Look, I told them, what I'm writing about is literally happening in front of me right now. Marketing, legal, HR, and many other departments began dual reporting to executives at both Blizzard and Activision Blizzard, causing widespread frustration and confusion. It was always very unclear who should be accountable, making decisions, said Vincent Francoeur, head of Blizzard's web and mobile department. Philosophically, it wasn't a clean divide, where there were Blizzard staff who sympathized with some of Activision's viewpoints, and vice versa. Even some Blizzard diehards believed developers at the company were too precious about keeping business out of conversations, especially as they started making mobile, free-to-play, and live service games. It was liberating in a way because it lets the team focus on making the best product they can possibly build, said Tim Morton, the production director of StarCraft 2. But refusing to think about, say, the cost of a cinematic would ultimately hurt a game's long-term viability, Morton believed. I think getting development teams closer to the economics was healthy, he said. But Armin Zerza's approach was so blunt, and Blizzard's top exec employees were so headstrong, that there appeared to be no room for compromise. Activision was focused on shareholders and devoted to process, while Blizzard was dedicated to players and allergic to timelines. It felt like one person was speaking Greek and one was speaking English, said one Activision executive. In the first 2 decades since he'd taken over as Blizzard's president, Morhaime had developed more of a business sense than any of his early peers would have expected. He was just as competitive as his colleagues in Santa Monica. One of his hobbies was playing poker on a professional level, and he'd spent years trying to find ways to satisfy Kotick without giving up what he thought made Blizzard great. He was a profit-motivated guy like everybody else, said Geo Hunt. The difference is, he wasn't a profit-motivated first guy. But executives in Santa Monica were baffled by Morhaime's insistence on putting up walls and refusing to listen to their advice. The relationship had deteriorated so badly that even when Kotick made reasonable suggestions, Blizzard staff would resist because they came from Activision. Thomas Tibble snarked that Blizzard should change its company value to "every voice within Blizzard matters." From Kotick's perspective, Blizzard wasn't as successful as Morhaime and his team believed they were. Each new World of Warcraft expansion still took 2 years, and there were no other big releases to fill the gaps. Blizzard's profits were falling, from $1 billion in 2016 to $790 million in 2017 to $685 million in 2018. And with no big products imminent, they were primed to plummet even more. It was clear to top Blizzard staff that something was going to give. Few were prepared for what would happen next. Now, if you'll excuse me for a moment, I'm going to go away for a second, run the cattle, and hopefully my throat will not kill me before that. Be right back. Enjoy the music. Alright then. Get all set. I'll be able to hear it from that room. So, one more chapter and I think we can move on to Torchlight. Chapter 24. Changing of the Guard. Mike Morhaime and Bobby Kotick couldn't have been more opposite if they had been grown in a laboratory. Perhaps the only things they had in common were that they both ran video game companies and they were both very rich. Kotick was the guy who skipped classes and dropped out of school, the boisterous CEO who could charm anyone into being his friend, while Morhaime was the nerdy, introverted student who sat in the front row. Kotick went to celebrity parties in the Hamptons. Morhaime called the developers to ask about changes he'd noticed during late-night sessions of StarCraft 2. Side note, Greg Black, a designer on StarCraft 2, recalled Morhaime sent out an email with some thoughts about after holiday break one year. We looked it up. The dude had played hours of StarCraft 2 on the ladder, Black said. You have to wonder how many people in his position who run these big Fortune 500 game companies are spending their weekends playing the nerdiest, most hardcore game in their slate for hours. If only we knew. Kotick maintained a private art collection worth millions of dollars. Morhaime's house tiles were inscribed with insignias from World of Warcraft. For several years, the two men were able to put aside their differences in favor of a fruitful partnership. When they first paired up in 2008, as Activision Blizzard was growing every year, Morhaime and Kotick would regularly dine to talk about their strategy and success. But in 2013, when Titan failed and Kotick wrested control of the company from Vivendi, their relationship began to fall apart. Morhaime wanted to preserve Blizzard and Blizzard's autonomy, while Kotick wanted to integrate the organization into the Activision Blizzard umbrella. In 2018, Blizzard generated less profit than King or Activision Publishing, yet employed more people, in part because of its leaders' belief that they needed to maintain internal support teams to preserve their culture and keep players happy. Kotick wanted to streamline those teams and reorganize the company into divisions based on franchises: Warcraft, Diablo, Overwatch, and so on, each devoted to releasing content on a predictable schedule. Both executives had the same fundamental goal: for Blizzard to make great games that brought in millions of players and made lots of money. But their methods were drastically different. Morhaime wanted to create an environment where developers felt empowered, secure, and willing to take risks for the sake of innovation without having to worry that they'd be punished for failure. At Blizzard, people put Blizzard and gamers first because there is no financial incentive to stay on or leave any given project, he'd written to Kotick in the email. The downside of this approach, in Activision's view, was that developers could coast on indefinite timelines, collecting profit-sharing checks without releasing any games. Those who sympathized with Kotick pointed out that his strategies took Activision from bankruptcy into one of the most lucrative game makers on the planet. While Blizzard staff enjoyed their freedom to experiment, Kotick was accountable to shareholders and the board of directors, who would demand explanations whenever the company delayed a game. At the end of the day, Kotick's top priority was to make his company's stock go up, and he believed that for Blizzard to be successful in that goal, it needed to change. In 2018, Blizzard's release schedule was looking anemic. StarCraft and Heroes of the Storm were both struggling to generate much revenue. New Diablo and Overwatch games were still years away, and the incubation projects were too early to count on. Even the mobile games, which left executives at Activision scratching their heads. The company was still making money through new content for World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, and Overwatch, but the latter two were slowing down. People around Morhaime worried that his fights with Activision were taking a hefty toll. In 2017, he'd even submitted a resignation letter, although Kotick had convinced him to walk it back, and those close to him encouraged him to stay. As the public face and co-founder of Blizzard, he was the only one with enough power and clout to keep Activision's pressure away from his teams. Sure, Armin Zerza was making a big impact inside of Blizzard, but Morhaime could at least keep the executives at Santa Monica in check. In StarCraft parlance, Morhaime was the lone bunker on the ramp that walled in the Terran base, preventing Zerglings from swarming the buildings. But in the spring of 2018, After the one ABK offsite, Morhaime began to realize that he had lost the war, and he started to quietly talk to other Blizzard executives about a succession plan, as he geared up to leave the company he had run for 2 decades. On October 3rd, 2018, Morhaime announced that he was stepping down from Blizzard after 27 years. He didn't offer much of an explanation in public, writing in a blog post that he had decided it's time for someone else to lead Blizzard Entertainment. But those who worked closely with him knew why he'd left. He was tired of battling with Kotick. He looked like a second-term president, said one executive. Blizzard staff were devastated by the news. Morhaime was the rare video game CEO who was worshipped by people who worked under him. He would greet receptionists by name, respond directly to emails from low-level staff, and encourage developers to prioritize players above all else. Many Blizzard employees had their own personal stories about the quiet acts of kindness they'd seen and received from their boss. Hundreds wrote emails and letters to Morhaime to wish him farewell, thank him for everything he'd done. Critics would point out that he was too trusting and that he had either ignored or been oblivious to the behavior of some problematic Blizzard veterans, whose misdeeds would come to light later. Morhaime's inner circle included a few people with less savory reputations, people to whom he was loyal because they had been in the trenches with him for decades. "He is the most inclusive, open, tolerant person I know," said one senior woman at Blizzard. But for reasons that are quite complicated, he was surrounded by bros. Yet he was beloved by Blizzard by thousands of employees. A 2018 survey of the website Glassdoor determined that he was one of the year's most popular CEOs, with a 96% approval rating from Blizzard staff. Now he was gone. Zerglings could move as they pleased. And I hear the kettle, so a moment, be right back. Tea is fresh off fire, so I'm gonna need to wait for it to cool off a little bit. It's going to take a little bit, so let's see where we are right now. Morhaime's successor was J. Allen Brack, the company veteran who had cut his teeth in the 1990s at the legendary game studio Origin Systems, then worked in the online game Star Wars Galaxies before joining Blizzard in 2006. He worked his way up the ranks to production director and then executive producer in World of Warcraft, making him the top developer on the company's most important game. Some colleagues saw him as cold or cliquish, but he was well respected within the company and widely perceived as someone who would stand up for Blizzard's culture. Yet questions lingered about how much power he would have compared to his predecessor. Morhaime's tenure and reputation had afforded him a significant amount of leverage that Brack didn't have. Sharp-eyed observers noticed that the announcement came with a title downgrade. While Morhaime had been CEO and president, Brack was just president. The press materials announcing Brack's appointment also noted that Alan Adham and longtime producer Ray Gresco, back from his rage quit turned sabbatical, were joining Blizzard's executive team. Left unacknowledged was that Blizzard no longer had its own CEO. Blizzard staff whispered that at least Armin Zerza hadn't gotten the top job. Kotick undoubtedly knew that would have led to open rebellion. The changes from Activision were coming in fast and furious. The biggest move was a push for cost-cutting that had started earlier that year, as the company had begun encouraging employees to do more with less. There were continuations of the moves that Zerza had already made, giving more power to the commercial organization. Other shifts were more subtle. There was a little more red tape to get things approved, said Callie O'Leary, a project manager in events. It was no longer, yes, push the button. It was, let's take it up to Activision Blizzard. To the outside world, there were small hints as to what was happening. Back in 2017, Blizzard had begun selling and distributing Activision's Destiny 2 on Battle.net, the first non-Blizzard game on their PC platform. Morhaime reluctantly agreed to allow it, but privately vowed to colleagues that he would never put Call of Duty, with its bloody military combat, on Blizzard's store. Despite those assurances, Activision announced months later that the next Call of Duty was coming to Battle.net. A strange and unwelcome development that for some Blizzard fans who didn't want to see big army ads when they logged into World of Warcraft. As part of this ongoing collaboration, Activision wanted Blizzard to promote Destiny 2 at BlizzCon 2018. It wasn't the first time that Santa Monica's executives had asked Blizzard to market their games at the annual fan event, but Blizzard had always refused. Under the current climate, the BlizzCon team didn't think they could turn down the request entirely, but they also didn't want it to happen during the official opening ceremony, where Morhaime would address Blizzard fans for the final time before introducing Brack as his successor. So instead they came to a compromise. Someone from the Destiny 2 development team would come on the pre-show to promote the game. It was a minor but noticeable moment. An Activision game had invaded Blizzard's conference. The end of the ceremony, which would feature the next Diablo game, was a much bigger dilemma, one that many Blizzard employees had been debating for months. Back in 2016, after Hades was cancelled, a small team of designers had started work on a project codenamed Fenris that would later be called Diablo 4. While Hades had been experimental, this was planned as a proper sequel, with the same camera angle and combat style as previous games. It had now been 6 years since Diablo 3. Fans were eager to learn about the next entry in the long-running series. For all of Diablo 3's faults, it had still sold 30 million copies. But Blizzard also had another Diablo game to show off. The company had partnered with NetEase, its distributor and publisher in China, to develop a mobile game called Diablo Immortal. It had been seamless to translate Diablo's gameplay, which centered on the mindless clicking, to a phone's touchscreen, and everyone figured the game could be a huge hit in China, where free-to-play action games that could fairly be called Diablo clones regularly generated billions of dollars in revenue. BlizzCon 2018 needed a new big announcement, and Diablo Immortal fit the bill. It was an unexpected entry in a series that had been quiet for years. Some members of Blizzard's PR and marketing teams feared that the news might be poorly received, warned their bosses that fans looking for the next Diablo game might not react well to the announcement of a game for the phones. Mobile gaming remained as lucrative as ever. Many video game enthusiasts, including fans who were flying out to Anaheim, derided phone games for repetitive gameplay and exploitative microtransactions. To mitigate any potential rage, several Blizzard staffers proposed that they couple the Diablo Immortal announcement with a teaser for Diablo 4. That way, the messaging would be clear. Yes, they were making a phone game, but they were also making a proper sequel. But Diablo 4 was still years away, and the new director, Luis Barrega, was against the idea. Other Blizzard executives agreed with Barrega that they should save their announcement of Diablo 4 for the following year, when they could have a demo ready for fans to play at the show. Not fire it off now, just now to give cover to a mobile game. For months, teams across Blizzard debated on how to move forward, weighing their options during weekly BlizzCon check-in meetings. Any suggestion that they push back Diablo Immortal's announcement was quickly squashed because Activision executives were frothing at the mouth to see how shareholders would react to a new mobile game from Blizzard. At the same time, the idea was that they so much as teased Diablo 3, or Diablo 4, was shut down by Barrega and Team 3. Instead, they tried to come up with their other solutions that would convey to fans that Diablo 4 was in the works. They just couldn't announce it yet. Besides, some Blizzard developers and executives thought that once people saw how cool it was to have Diablo on a phone, they'd be hooked. There was this absolute belief that Diablo Immortal was going to be the Overwatch of 2018, said Sarah Borger, a project manager on the events team, that it would blow everyone out of the water. I'm not gonna comment on this. This is too low of a fruit, too low hanging of a fruit. The BlizzCon team put together a series of contingency plans, such as a video where Adham, now executive producer for both Diablo games, told fans that Diablo 4 was on the way, but instead they put up a blog post on Blizzard's website, aiming to obliquely convey to fans what was going on. We currently have multiple teams working on different Diablo projects, and we can't wait to tell you all about them. When the time is right, they wrote. We know that many of you are hoping for, and we can only say that good things come to those who wait. But evil things often take longer. The blog post also teased that we do intend to share some Diablo-related news with you at the show, which sent fan speculation into overdrive. Blizzard had intended to tamp down the hype, but if anything, this messaging had the opposite effect. On November 2nd, 2018, fans gathered at Anaheim Convention Center for BlizzCon's introductory ceremony. It opened with Morhaime taking the stage for the last time in a loose bowling shirt, reminiscing about the company's history and then passing the microphone to Brack, a foot taller than him with a long ponytail and teal Blizzard button-down. Thank you for all you've done, Brack said. We wouldn't be here without you. The show closed with Wyatt Cheng, the longtime Diablo veteran who was now helming Diablo Immortal, announcing that we're making a full-fledged action RPG you can play everywhere with everyone, before showing off trailers for the game. With a whisper of a goatee and a nervous energy, Cheng ended his presentation with an awkward pause, as if about to tease something else. Instead, the show came to an end. There was a smattering of polite applause and a whole lot of consternation, both from fans online and at the convention center. Blizzard's vague messaging about Diablo 4 hadn't quite hit the mark, and people wondered if this mobile game was arriving in lieu of a sequel. Had Blizzard abandoned their core audience? During a panel presentation later, one fan asked if Diablo Immortal would be playable on computers as well. We don't have any plans for them at the moment to the PC, Cheng said. Of course, side note, that changed later, and the game would ultimately launch for both PC and mobile. When the crowd booed in response, he jokingly resorted, "Do you guys not have phones?" The clip hit the internet by storm, symbolizing what fans saw as Blizzard's distaste for their core customers. Later, another fan went viral after asking if the game's announcement was an out-of-season April Fool's joke. At the convention center, a team of Blizzard staff huddled in a makeshift war room, trying to figure out how to change the narrative. They tried to push journalists and fans to play the Diablo Immortal demo, knowing it was a solid adaptation of the beloved franchise. Before the show, they'd already assembled talking points, knowing that reporters would ask about Diablo 4, so they doubled down. Yes, that incident. We continue to have multiple teams work on multiple unannounced Diablo projects, Adham would tell the reporters trying to announce the game without officially announcing it. The widespread outrage represented video game culture at its worst. Fans of the medium were expressing anger at individual game developers for the truly unforgivable sin of announcing a game for phones. Chang, who had been working on Diablo since the Blizzard North days and who was beloved by teammates for his design skills and genial demeanor, became an internet meme and the perceived face of Blizzard's greed, much to the horror of his colleagues. But the Diablo Immortal snafu was also the beginning of what would become a much bigger problem for Blizzard. A fan base that was starting to turn on the company. The outside world wasn't aware of Armin Zerza or Activision's growing level of influence on Blizzard's operations, but to the loudest players, mobile games often represented industry greed due to their rampant microtransactions. Blizzard had always towered above the other video game companies that were known for chasing short-term profits. Now, with Morhaime gone and Diablo Immortal is the first big announcement after his departure, fans feared that might change. There was perhaps no better example of the old Blizzard approach than Heroes of the Storm. Unlike its free-to-play peers, Heroes of the Storm avoided using virtual currency. When players went to the in-game store, they'd see the prices listed in dollars, or their local equivalent, rather than jewels, gems, or casino chips. To Blizzard veterans like executive producer Chris Sigety, being clear and direct about their prices rather than obfuscating the real costs was an obvious part of taking a player-first approach to game design. But when business-minded people looked at the Heroes of the Storm shop, they were stupefied. Virtual money was a standard component of free-to-play games, both because it increased spending and because it allowed the developers to offer in-game promotions and new account bonuses. This was a given, said one newcomer. If you're doing free-to-play, you use a virtual currency. They were hardcore against this. Following the underwhelming release of Heroes of the Storm, the team began working on a new update called Heroes 2.0 that would reverse this decision and push for profitability. Although the update was marketed as a gameplay overhaul and it did offer some significant changes, it also brought in loot boxes and overhauled the store, replacing all those real prices with virtual currency. The message was clear. Heroes of the Storm needed to generate revenue, and with Blizzard's overall culture changing, business needs became a regular part of conversations that might have otherwise focused on the game. It became less about how can we do this in the coolest way, more about how can we make more money than X or Y, said one designer. Heroes of the Storm remained an important pillar of esports, where Blizzard supported a collegiate league called Heroes of the Dorm, televised on ESPN, and a high-stakes tournament known as the Heroes Global Championship. At BlizzCon 2018, professional Heroes of the Storm players battled over a $1 million prize pool and were told that Blizzard planned to support the program for at least another year. A trailer teasing new Heroes of the Storm content from 2019 included HGC as part of the large montage of upcoming features, and behind the scenes, Sigety and the rest of the leadership team had developed an esports plan for the coming year that was approved by J. Allen Brack, Ray Gresko, and Armin Zerza. But now the entire Activision Blizzard organization was gearing up for significant cost-cutting. The Heroes 2.0 update hadn't been as lucrative as they'd hoped. In the middle of the night on December 13th, 2018, Blizzard put up a blog post declaring that the company had made the difficult decision to shift some developers from Heroes of the Storm to other teams. The struggling MOBA would still receive new content updates, Blizzard said, but the cadence will change, as the company pivoted to long-term stability. Many members of the team wound up getting jobs elsewhere within Blizzard, while others were laid off. Supporting esports for another year would require them to cut even more jobs at Blizzard. So Brack and his team decided to reverse course on their previous plans, announcing in the blog post that both Heroes of the Dorm and the Heroes Global Championship were cancelled. This came as a shock to the Heroes of the Storm players, team managers, and announcers who had just been told a month earlier that the programs would continue, with some taking to Twitter to share their outrage. "We are troubled by the way the announcement was made," wrote one team manager, namely the impolitic choice to use social media to share such a message that effectively ended the careers of hundreds of players, content creators, casters, production crews overnight. Chris Ivermy, a British announcer who went by the handle Thatcher, said at the time that he was making around $4,000 a month during the season, upon which he relied to pay rent and bills. Like other announcers and players, he was disappointed to learn that he was losing his livelihood on Twitter. Later, they received emails from Blizzard offering severance payments, but the damage had been done. Years earlier, Blizzard had started its own esports division in part to thwart behavior like this, which had been common among grassroots organizations and tournaments. And now, they were part of the problem they had been trying to solve. As Blizzard employees headed off for their holiday vacations, it was clear that the company was going to look much different in the post-Morhaime era. And there were still more costs to be cut. And that took the entire Diablo 3 Ultimate soundtrack collection. I do love moments like these when the timing of the music coincides with what I am trying to tell you. And we have about 7 chapters left, which in theory will be just one more stream on Tuesday to finish off. After that, I'll consider what comes after that. Maybe I'll start reading a VN. I've been eyeing one coupled with a turn-based strategy called Planet Stronghold. It's an older release by now, a decade old, released in 2012. I'm sure you'll like it. I know I would. In theory. But hey, we can all discuss that a little later, after we're done with the book. I am always happy to hear your input on all of our happenings. After all, I am here for you. I hope you are enjoying this. Now then. I am getting a little sappy. Maybe it's just a bit of a fatigue settling in, excuse me. Let's just continue where we left off in terms of Torchlight. And also, let me quickly remove both Gothic and those lovely WoW players from the screen, because they would be obstructions. And here we go. Give the OBS or other Streamlabs a moment. There. Yeah, I think I can do this. I just will be sipping tea all the while because it's cooled down. I won't be speaking too much during this. I'll be fine. Don't you worry about me. I'll tell you when to worry about me. I'll start saying things like this time I'm really gonna do it. But then again, I already discussed this topic later today, or rather earlier, just with different people. Now then, back into the grind set. Also, apologies if that music, yes, it's kind of loud. Gotta need to adjust it. Silence. All of you, silence. You're still somewhat loud. Highly unfortunate. Maybe I will need to turn it down even more. So I suppose. Yeah, that should be good. At least for now. Now let's check our quests. Where were we? Primal Caverns. Primal Ember. Rumbles in the Deep, that's our main quest. Quest for Glory. Kill Summonon 418. And find a Runic Flagon in here. That should be doable. I still don't understand why Scream Labs refuses to capture the loading screens. It'd be one of its quirks in regards to older software. Okay, now he's throwing spores at me, you mushrooms. Almost got me. Once again, out of my sight.
Your pet has fled.
I'm not catching me on. Not catching me lacking in this regard. Still got me here, huh? Fine, I'll pay your fee. This time, I'm here to finish the job. That's where we came in. So continuing down here. An arquebus. It's white, so we don't have a use for it. Not yet. Also reminds me, I need to change the stream category. It's still set to just chatting. But now, there's Torchlight proper. Very good. Back to it. Oh, well, not much of a chatting if I don't have anyone else on call to chat with. The chat is not very chatty as it stands. Not so. I know some people here are more about watching rather than speaking, but still. Give me your potions, you nerds. I got a sore throat from all of you. And this is the least you can do in your position. Show some respect, both of you. You specifically just charging at me. Being all confrontational. You specifically, you're just a mushroom. What are you even good for? Huh? But yeah. Lurkers are welcome here. Anyone is welcome here as long as they're not being an abrasive person, or an art bot, or any bot in general. And I do say all of this with utmost respect. Oh, that's a big one. What's your name? Axmorak the Mangler. Oi. Only I am allowed to make double entendres here. Everyone else just needs to fill in the quota. Now, I'm thinking we invest a little more into our seeking shots, and then into explosive shot. Block and parry I don't think we'll need to bother with. It's only 2% per level, and that would require, first of all, a significant investment. Second of all, as you can see, it caps at rank 10, which means it's still gonna be only 20%. And that's just not gonna cut it. Even if we were a melee build, that won't do. But what are you? Zapping Sharpshooter Arquebus. Still less damage than what we have right now. You need Dexterity 54 to use it. We're trading poison and electric damage for... We're trading poison damage for HP stolen on hit. So yeah, not gonna be worth it. Not one bit. Looks like my little brother is back on his bullshit. That being Dota 2. Hey, room service. Thank you for your cooperation. That, however, was not welcome. Oh man, I did have my own MOBA phase back in college because I did play other games. Oh, besides Dota. I also played League of Legends. And that was perhaps, and the only time I also did an in-game purchase was in League of Legends, mind you. That's when I bought Jinx. Because yes, I can appreciate her as a damage dealer. It's kind of a glass cannon. And besides, I was also hooked on Get Jinxed. They got me. They got me, Jerry. They got me good. I can revoke my based license after these statements. Now, mind you, all of the damage has been only hinted at because this is Jinx immediately on release, remember. None of the expanded stuff from Arcane. That was... what, 2016? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 2016. She would only say innocent stuff like, "You think I'm crazy? You should see my sister." Or, "I'm wearing lots of belts for no reason at all." And her first skin would be mafia themed, where she would hide her weapons in a giant violin case. Because get it? Violins? Huh? Huh? I'm here all night, ladies and gentlemen. Or at least until you stick around. Yes, you can say Arcane was fanfic, even though Riot Games have admitted that Arcane is canon, or at least Fortiche said so. Hey, besides, Jinx also said that verbatim. What's in the case? Violence. And oh god, I am being punished with spiders for that. Please have mercy. Out of my sight, out of my sight. Night Cutter the Downcast, I kill you dead. You still got me, you bastard. They got me good, Jerry. They got me good. This we cannot allow. Just as some people have an irrational fear of mice, because I know my brother can also be sketchy when it comes, or rather skittish when it comes to mice. I know you wouldn't want to be bitten by one, especially if you're trying to clear it out of a cupboard, for instance. I don't find them that scary, but what I do find scary is, as you can imagine, spiders. Especially the unusually big ones. Now get over here. Die. You can say those kind of the jokes, yes. But at least he dropped an unidentified ring. I don't think it's gonna be something good, and it's just experience gain and a little bit of fire and ice resistance. Yeah, not just Tarantula country. Black Widow spiders too, or as they called here, Karakurt. Pretty sure it was made up of from a Turkish loanword, because Kara, if you recall, is black in Turkish. They still bite people during harvest seasons. Still, and our hospitals still have the anti-venom staff, or rather, yeah, anti-venom on hand in that case. At least I remember they did. I'm not sure by now. Now then, where was I? Cannot use any of those glasses, so you are going off into the market. Soon. What? Pygmies? In these caves? Who invited you over, and who is allowing you to throw globs of acid at me? This is not a rave. You there. Zulmareth the Assassin. What do you think you are? And then again, it is in your name. You're the assassin. So instead of casting fireballs, you're casting acid balls. You will not be dropping acid on me today. What? Partisan? Who in their right mind calls a polearm a partisan? A toxic partisan, that is. I would write... I have some ideas to who is the toxic partisan, but this is not the time nor place for political jokes. So let's just say we did a good job, move on. war mallet. Not a war hammer, but a war mallet. And no, we're not getting the war mallet because it is white, therefore strictly inferior. Same for that war sword. See? War sword, war mallet, but no war hammer. Because GW is always watching. Toxic Avenger is a good movie, or so I've heard. Yet to actually see it. Also, a brief reminder to everyone present that I am currently showing Hogfather on my Discord server. Tomorrow, we will be finishing off the second movie, which is of course made for TV, but it is a good movie nonetheless. As well as also finishing off the last 5 episodes of the Secret Level anthology. This won't take too, mind you, so I hope you decide to stick around and have a wonderful time watching these. Additionally, if my friends are running some longer series over at Monday and Tuesday. These are of course all voluntary on basis. And out of my way, Battle Axe. I need that health potion. But you know what? Killing you takes priority. Especially seeing as you are one nasty client. Jesus Christ. These lizards know how to fight, I'll tell you what. Finally, grab the battle axe. Although it's not my style. And the white officer's pistol. Increases all physical and elemental damage by 2%. I like that. Plus a little bit more magic, even though we'll be trading away faster cast speed. I think it's a worthy trade-off. And you got increased gold find and dexterity, huh? Not too fond of that. You over here, still inferior damage. HP stolen and hit and some knockback. Crossbow, Arcuballista of the Vampire. I can't believe you actually sent me an in-game item, Yor. Call it a care package, I am flattered. Fortunately, I'm not going to use it. Sorry. I will sell it off, so thank you, nevertheless. Anyway, mittens, off you go. Daddy needs more money.
Your pet has departed.
We may or may not be approaching the end of this. But we shall see about that in a second. There we go. Gotta love AoE attacks. They are our lifeblood at this point. What I do not like, however, is when I am forced to stand in place and shoot. You know, this is where seeking shot would have been helpful. Here, you actually have to aim at your target. Sometimes it does connect. Let's try this again. Elevation shouldn't be too much of a problem. Ideally. Stop draining my mana. Looks like we made a circle. I guess we're going down. From a different direction it is. I think it was a worthy detour. And now I finished off my tea, so I am already feeling a little better. Especially because I've managed to drink it up before it went cold.
Your pet has returned.
Thank you. We have here strength attribute bonus and magic find. And we made another circle, it seems. I guess we're looking for the exit. Back where we need to look for it. Hello, sentence, I know, but that means we just missed an elevator, which is supposed to be somewhere around here, right? Yeah. Especially considering all those unmolested mushrooms. Choice words, I know. But they need a good digging. Or a good bolt rammed into their orifices, especially considering what they're doing to me. It's only fair, or as the saying goes, turn around is fair play. See what I mean? Knock knock. Come on, I didn't even finish the joke and you're already trying to hit me. On the head. Or rather, lesser protected places. You need to chill out. Not just an officer's pistol, a lieutenant's pistol. A clear downgrade. Because we are no longer using pistols by this point in time. They unfortunately have fallen off in terms of damage. Also, Mittens, you know what time it is? Time for you to eat your fish. That's right. You're back to being an elemental, but this time, an ice elemental. Ooh, that's a set item. But unfortunately, it's a staff. And it's not even a part of the set that I have. Therefore, it goes into the vendor trash pile. Anyone home? Of course there are. Are you smart enough to open the doors? I don't think you are. And the AoE damage can reach through there, so joke's on you. However, joke's on me because you didn't even drop good loot. But thank you for the XP anyway. That is always appreciated. What would also be appreciated is that if you would stop caving my face in whenever you see me. Now, where was I? Right. You know, we can stop bombarding the corpses. I need you to bombard those that are still attacking me. sword, sword, sword. You can't afford, afford. Ow. Fair enough, I deserve that. Next time I'll sing Diggy Diggy Hole. Already gathering an audience for the concert, and they are not happy about that. They'd rather I sing something else then. Right then. As I was saying, you might be opposed to singing. Fair point, fair point.
Your pet is fleeing.
As noted by all the car bombs they're sending my way. Oh, they are not exactly car bombs, but they are bombs nonetheless.
My health is low.
And I would also appreciate it if you were to stop trying to murder both me and my pet. I am definitely leveling up my explosive shot after this. Well, once I hit the next level, of course. There's the stairs down. Before we go there, final stop over here. More natives getting restless. Traps, no traps, only a ring. Is that any good? Not quite. Faster cast speed and defense. Second floor should be much shorter, or at least a little shorter. I hope so. And this Forsaken Caverns is where the fun is, but not for you. Out of my sight with your cobwebs. I will boil you alive if you so much as approach me. That's right, I will not roast you, I will boil you. You boil a common crab. Except when I'm done boiling you, I will not eat you. I will scoop you up and crush you into fine dust. Same goes for you. Spiders upon spiders upon spiders. Stuff of nightmares. And I'm already out of mana potions because of you. At least you had the courtesy to drop some mana potions back. Thank you for that. You, however, once again are not welcome here. Out of my sight. There will be no autograph signings tonight. Ooh, we've progressed from giant health potions to super health potions. That is always nice to see. Okay, still inferior. Same goes for the pistols. Highly unfortunate. Come on. I said no autographs.
I am hurt.
Please respect my privacy, the lot of you. What did I just tell you? I asked politely and you didn't comply, and now you're all dead. And this is the target that I've been looking for, precisely by the portal. Runic flagon. What do you even need a flagon for? I have no idea. But if the guy wants it, he'll get it. There you go. And your wand is unfortunately inferior, therefore straight to the market it goes. Here you go. Now charge for extra power. Do you have anything better, by the way, than what I currently have? 150, 258. Could be good instead of this Fangon of Venom, but it only has crit hit chance and armor degradation per hit. You know what? Maybe it could work. We'll do it like so. Have that enchanted. But for those enchantments, I'm gonna need more money, which I do not have at this time, believe it or not. Quiet the conundrum ourselves in. Quiet the conundrum. At least I'm no longer lacking in identify scrolls. Now then, where were we in here? Still in the caverns. But where exactly? We'll find out in a moment. Floor 17. Our target, at least the next one, the list is on floor 18, if memory serves right. Oh, and the Primal Ember too. Yeah, floor 18. And we'll get some boots. They're not kinky boots. Steel Sabatons, actually. And I've yet to see a man who is not a fan of Sabaton. The same does not apply to these lizards, unfortunately. I don't think they listen to Sabaton, these bards. Same goes for these types. Especially you, Ogrod. You don't listen to Sabaton, do you? You're an uncultured spider like that. I think it's time to put 2 more points into defense, a bit of magic, and dexterity, and upgrade our explosive shot, so that we're dealing even more damage and killing you even deader. Give me all of your potions. All of them. And I don't think big potions will cut it for me, as of recently. So these are gonna need to be sold out post-haste. Now, we've been over here, as is established by the minimap. Therefore, we are going to take a detour through here and over there. Right? Right. That's the correct way of going. And straight down to floor 18 we go. I've forgotten how many floors in there. Maybe something like 25, 30. But instead of guessing, find it out the hard way, by going through all of them. Also, There's the Primal Ember.
Quest complete.
Wheellock Carbine. I'm guessing it's gonna be strictly inferior. Let's double check. Yep. Strictly inferior. Yeah, smashing ahead against each level to find out. Who is a workable plan? Especially with these lovely creatures to keep me company. As they all provide an invaluable source of experience. Which is always welcome. Whenever they don't cave my face, and that is... But even then, death is a slap on the wrist in these types of games. That, however, is not a welcome development where you can just barge in, make me feel valid, and then go Burger King. Burger Krieg, or whatever it is they do with these here parts. At least now, I'm once again powerful and can reliably one-shot or two-shot most enemies. Like that. See what I mean? Once again, old friends pygmies pop around. Now, can you make this Falconet Arquebus even deadlier, I wonder? No. Ah well. It's still good. Therefore, I lose nothing, but you will lose everything, up to and including your life. Hear that, Sword Grinder the Arcane? I hope you've enjoyed your brief encounter with me, but we will not be seeing each other in the afterlife. I expressly asked for the opposite of that. Anyone else? Don't think so.
I can't do that.
You can. You're just being shy. Oh, and we also got a cracked eyeball out of this one. Very good. Electrical resistance, strength, increased experience gain. I'll consider it. And of course, another strictly inferior weapon. Almost nobody here. But thank you for the gold anyway. There you are. Shields won't save you. Getting two-shotted by my gun. How did it go? This is my rifle, this is my gun. This one's for fighting, this one's for fun. Except the gun for fun in question would be my dual pistol setup, because, as established, they are inferior in terms of damage. We are, however, still hitting the power levels that should be not only possible but valid. Yet again, the pygmies around here are restless. Same goes for you, Fulchur the Improbable. I'm pretty sure we're supposed to kill you. In the sense that we have a quest on your head. Yeah? Precisely.
I am wounded.
Can you Thank you. Now let's turn in both of those immediately. That was my plan all along, believe it or not. Being efficient, turning in 2 quests at a time, even if loot is not exactly worth it. Okay. Gararak the Ancient on the level below. And you will give us... Oh. Still an inferior weapon, but fine. I'll take it. Here's your Primal Ember. And you also have a final quest for me. Let's see over here, just a second. There we go. One more point into ranged weapons expertise. Once we hit level 10, we're gonna be pretty good. So, what do you want? Savage Ember, found in the Caldera volcanoes. If you delve deep enough, you may find the molten rock required for its creation. So that will be in another area. The final one. And you will give us a dungeon scroll. Acceptable. Let's sell off some of our less powerful potions. As well as things we do not need. Thank you for your business. And I'll take each one of these. Maybe 2 in case of a health potion. You just never know. The cracked eyeball goes into here. Now what was I saving for? Do we want the bone chest? Shadow Torso provides a lot of bonuses. Dexterity, defense, increased golden magic find, electrical, fire, ice, and poison resistance. Plus a little bit more strength, courtesy of the cracked, or rather, another gem we've inserted. I think it was the cracked core ember. Just better. While the bone chest just has more armor, even more armor, reduction of damage taken, 1% decrease in vendor prices, I'll give it that, and electrical resistance specifically. I mean, we can insert just a little bit of poison resistance or ice resistance into it. I am, of course, highly debating that. Whether it's gonna be worth it in the end. We can at least see... See? No. We can put it on, but no, we actually cannot. Because if we take off the Shadow Torso, we no longer have the required attributes to put on the Bone Chest. Therefore, the Bone Chest is useless to us and we can sell it off. The conundrum has resolved itself before our very eyes. Now tell me, do you have decent gloves? I don't think you do, but I'm going to check out anyway. I am left disappointed yet again. You and me both, pal. You and me both. Where was I? Right. Here we go. It's gonna take a little while. Hey, where are you going? Where are you going? No running off without my notice. Especially when there is a vendor around. We like our wandering merchants here, folks. They have things that you cannot find in town. Good things. And I've offload some of the white stuff lying around here for them. Now tell me, did I clear out these lizards? You have. You have another identify scroll. Cracked pure ember. Armor, dexterity, armor, ice damage. You can call it that. But then again, I'm more about the eye candy. Otherwise, I wouldn't be wearing these. Oh, let's see what you else have. Meh ring. To identify scrolls. Meh fireball. And 2 fairly low level scrolls. 2 fairly low level dungeons. Here, have my axe. Have this big health potion. I don't need it. But I will grab... No, not haste 2. Maybe I'll buy fireball 3. Let's see if my pet would like to learn it. Instead of, say, Frost 1. This will be a direct upgrade. Unlearn Frost 1. Or I suppose you cannot yet, because you are a Frost Elemental. Then, can you unlearn? Was it Control? Left click. There. Now you'll be a Frost Elemental that throws fireballs. They will not be expecting this. Just as nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition anymore. And not for the reasons you may be thinking. They're just being more subtle about this. And this may be a controversial opinion. But ultimately the Inquisition did more good than harm. Yes, I will be burned alive by the daughters of the witches that they didn't burn. But they will not reach me. And even if they send any psychic attacks against me, they will find me hopelessly insane even before that. And guarded by creatures beyond their understanding. Just as they could not take down both Donald Trump and Allah. I am beyond their reach. For the modern witches are weak. But yeah, that was my side tangent. One of the many that I am going to go on over the course of these streams. And oh look, that was a mimic. Where is this all going? Nowhere. That's the big part of it. This is going nowhere because I need to fill in the void yapping. Why do I yap? Because I can, and because it can get lonely in here. A pitiful excuse, I know. Especially now as I run out of health potions. If you can stop pursuing me for a second, thank you kindly. Still not as powerful as the one that I have. Anyway. Drink up me hearties, yo-ho. The point is that yapping is supposed to fill in the gaps that are left in the game. Because while I loathe to be saying dumb shit for no reason, I also need to fill in the void. I understand. Once again, have a good night's rest, man. You're gonna need it. I'll be staying around here for at least level, and then we'll see where this is all going. But yes, going back to the topic of yapping and side tangents. As it stands, I need to fill in the void when I am not actively speaking. There. Because while I hate to be speaking dumb shit, the silence is the ultimate killer of the mood and of viewership. At least that's what I'm telling myself. And that is why I continue saying inane things that might or might not sound good to your ear. This may alleviate the situation if I were to have a co-pilot, wingman if you will, who would fill the gaps with something less inane, or actually something meaningful that I can comment on. But as it stands, nobody yet has decided to step up to the challenge. That is not to say that I don't have people that do not want to do that. The thing is, they do want to do that, but they cannot at this time due to a multitude of reasons. At least, that's what I'm saying to myself in order to escape the fact that people are not very interested in my streams, or at least in their thematics. Therefore, I will vent my anger by killing you, Axe Stomper. You will not be taking me alive. And I will not tolerate your existence either. But anyway, let's just behave, said no one ever. Another quote from James. And boy oh boy, that's a lot of items which are unfortunately still useless to me. On the bright side, we can still sell them off for a pretty penny. And we'll not be selling that cracked pure amber. I cannot remember whether we can combine items into, or rather, combine embers into better embers, but I'm holding on to these nevertheless, just in case. Knock knock, this is the building inspector, here to see if your settlement is up to the code. I can say it is not. Therefore, I politely asking you to vacate the premises and wait for the reconstruction crew to arrive. No complaints? If you have any, feel free to lodge them with the complaints department. They will be seeing you shortly. Thank you for your cooperation, and have a nice rest of the day. I think we can allow ourselves to go down, since this is floor 18. Then again, do we need to kill anyone on floor 18? No, floor 19. Therefore, down we go. And keep it on keeping on. Or I suppose it is keep on keeping on. The point is, we keep at it. Just keep on keeping on. No matter what they say. Especially about the definition of insanity. Those who do that just want to gaslight you into actual insanity. Therefore, I will not be telling you what the definition of insanity is. You're big boys. You can figure that out on your own. I know you can. That's why I'm telling you to figure it out on your own. Otherwise, I would have spoon-fed it to you and asked you what you think it's going to be. You are no longer needed here. So thank you for shuffling off this mortal coil. Ah, that's our target. Now if you can stay still, apply the needed dosage shortly. There we go. Did you drop any good loot, or is it all going to be vendor fodder once again?
I can't carry anymore.
Guess we'll find out. And starting to two-shot, and occasionally one-shot. Now let's see. What do we have here? The shield and the axe we of course are not going to be using. Same goes for cleric staff. And these boots are inferior. Strictly inferior. As per usual. I have a nagging suspicion that we've hit our ceiling
Tank is full.
in regards to the available items, but I will hold on to these nonetheless. Anyway, mittens, off you go.
Your pet has departed.
Pretty good blast radius, if I do say so myself. Ow, but not too much of an ow. Can't pick that up, it seems. Oh, right then. Yep, that was a mimic, and that's a spider. As per usual, out of my sight, out of my mind. I'll see you all burn. Or at least violently exploded. Same goes for you, Poison Giver the Ruthless. And you, Shadow Recluse that keeps popping up.
Gain in experience.
Now then, more points into Dexterity. And another point into Critical Strike. I suppose we can turn in our quest by now. Just find a potion as well. I will come back to you once I've hit my low mana point. Same goes for you, thank you for the gold. Every little bit helps. And I do mean it. Okay, I'm feeling comfortable enough to go in the town portal.
Your pet has returned.
Well, you've certainly took your time. Yep, off you go. Nothing good. Nothing good. Not in the slightest. All of the set items that I've picked up, golden ones, are still carrying me. Thank you. Now you there. Give me more identify scrolls. And these super health potions. There you go. Next up, who do you want killed? Dower Thane on floor 21. As per usual. You got nothing for me there, understandable. Back we go. That was quick. As is the case with any pit stop. Give it a moment. There. Back to it. Yep, thank you for punching up. Always helps in this line of work. Same. So we continue through this bridge. Come on. Closer. Get closer. There we go. Thank you. Thank you kindly. Always appreciate it when you cooperate. Same cannot be said about you. But still, thank you anyway. Like that. Oh no. Oh no, I feel a sneeze coming. So give me a second. Alright, looks like we're in the clear. At least for now. Nobody? Hello? Room service. Looking for volunteers to help me with cleanup. You're not paying me enough to clean out that, you know? Of course you don't. Nobody told you about market rates. You know what market rates are in this economy? Of course you don't. You're a lizard living in the fringes of society. And none of you have any consideration of what I have to go through in order to see it all through. Without exemption. I've planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway, and more, much more than this. You did it. I did it my way, as you remember. Also, goodbye, boners. You will not be missed. And I will not be stopped, neither by you, nor the Confederates, or the Protoss, or anyone. I will rule this sector or see it burn to ashes around me. No, wait, wrong franchise. Thank you for green leather shoulders. sure they will fetch a suitable price on the market. Uh-huh. Come on, step right up. Step right up. This needs an audience. Suitably big one. No questions from the audience, thank you kindly. I will not be accepting these for quite a while. Maestro needs to retire. In a bit. Maybe a little later. Uh-huh. Gather round, children. I have a fascinating story for you to tell. It's got what you like, specifically explosions. I know you like explosions. Do not toy with me in that regard. You'll love to see it. The splash radius, that is. You always do. After all, what's not to like? When the enemy explodes in a 5-mile radius where your shot landed. That's how artillery was invented. That and sieges. Because cities can be very hard to take if you don't know what you're doing. And artillery helps in that process greatly. Even if it's something as simple as, say, a catapult, or trebuchet, I suppose. The walls need to be reduced in order for this to continue. Looks like we're gonna need to find another way around. Was there another way around, or have I missed the turn once again? I don't think I did. But evidently, something is missing. Or, let's be thorough and diligent. Been there. Been here too. Totally forgot to pick up that Shrine of Mana. Ah well, too late for that anyway. I'm not gonna pick it up right now because I have full mana as well as full confidence in my abilities to play this game through. No, there must be a turn that I have missed somewhere. Has to be further down the line. I am certain of it. If we check over here, no, looks like that's it. If we go here, then turn here. And after that, yes, looks like we need to go down here. Okay. And yes, that's the way. Pretty unassuming for a path to take. But then again, you cannot be wrong with taking any path in this area because you will be led to the correct way. Nope, you're not getting me tonight. Not anymore, at least. 2 or 3 times was enough, but now things would be clearly getting out of control. Oh, sorry about that. Looks like I inadvertently unlocked a cinematic mode. Good to know that it's bound either to numpad dot or numpad enter. Numpad enter, it seems. Ooh, a part of the necklace. Or rather, a necklace that's part of a set. As well as a spell of Summon Skeleton too, which I'm less excited about. Now, what are you? Midas's Riches. Faster cast speed reduces all ice damage done by 3%. And if we get more pieces, that will naturally increase our gold find. This is befitting of a set called Midas's Riches. We don't need that right now. But we will keep it on our, stash just in case. Maybe move it to a shared stash even. It's always these. At least they have the decency to drop gold. That is a staff. Gold standard. There's the way down, but before that, once again. Looking around, grabbing all of the XP and gold we can. That's just good practice. Are you a mimic? You are not. Thank you for that. And you weren't even trapped, though you only had gold and a healing potion. That is appreciated. Now, down we go here. And I'm thinking at this level, which is supposed to be level 20, we can end right after the boss battle, because Vast Chasm is where it's at. See, they even have flame wisps here, as well as other elemental enemies. And if there are elemental enemies, that means we will be encountering a boss. Also, by virtue of it being level 20, which means we are on the right param value. Then again, I suppose I shouldn't be using param value because I have no idea whether such a thing is even used in the game's code. That would be just me throwing around important sounding things.
I thought you would come. How could you resist the call of Ordrock? Once this colossus has subdued you, your transformation will be complete.
Ulrich, when I'm done with you, they'll be burying you in 6 different coffins. If you think this oversized monkey will stop me, you're mistaken. Even if it looks fancy. Or excuse me, that's an Ember Colossus, which makes it more like a Frankenstein's monster. He hits hard, I'll give him that, especially with that fancy laser of his. But we just gotta dodge it. And that we can do even if he decides to hit me with his elemental beam. Alright. Time to stop fooling around. Get my big boy potions out. We lock in. And we waste this oversized marital aid. I see you over there. Jeez, my beloved. When the stones are rocking, defeat the Ember Colossus. I hope you've dropped any good loot, otherwise I will be disappointed and I'll be taking it up with management. You certainly dropped a lot of embers. Health and mana. 10% chance to reflect 50% of missile damage. Dexterity and poison resistance. I will be taking this up with management. Lackluster, but you did manage to kill me once. Therefore, you're getting a C in your performance review. Congratulations. You're not getting fired just yet.
The tremors are subsiding. My faith in you was well placed. Have you encountered Master Ulrich again? I will have to deal with him eventually. I cannot allow him to become a servant of darkness. We are approaching the Ember Forge. One final obstacle remains. The Overseer's notes mention an ancient fortress infested with goblins. The hordes prevented him from ever reaching the dwarven fortress itself. Defeat the goblins, and we'll be close to our goal.
You have begun a new quest.
And here we go. This is the final area of the game. Let's just take this quick detour, grab all of this gold. And now, the final area of the game is, as mentioned, is going to be a dwarf fortress. Now, what achievement did we unlock? At the moment, it's going to be...
For hours I could feel the heat building. The rock beneath my feet grew warm, and sulfur burned in my nostrils. As I squeezed through the crack in the rock, I expected to see lava, but still, I was unprepared. The glow of bubbling rock blinded my cavern-adjusted eyes, and when my vision cleared, I saw what I at first took to be a fortress. I now know it to be a prison, set upon pillars of rock in a molten sea. Who could build such a thing? What could require such extreme incarceration? I am grateful that both prisoners and wardens have long since turned to dust.
That will not stop them, however. See? Because first we have goblins out and about. Secondly, we will have undead dwarves in here. But this is where we'll need to call it for the night. Once we get back to the town, that is. Step outside. And on that note, I would like to thank you all for coming. Get the sneezes coming back in. No, not yet. So, I'd like to thank you all for coming. And hopefully by Tuesday, my condition improves. Therefore, thank you all for coming, and I will see you all next time. Peace out.